Hi, everyone.
Greetings, everyone. We're in Revelation chapter 4, working through the finished mystery. And we're on page 82, right, of the finished mystery. And we're reading today verse 10. We're focusing on verse 10, but we want to back it up to verse 9 to get the sentence from the beginning of the sentence. It says, "And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who is seated on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying," and verse 11 is what they say. But first, we have to note something even from the text itself that, again, we would have missed for years, decades. And that is that you have a pattern that's developed from the beginning of this chapter. Notice it in 9 and 10, just what we read. "Thanks to him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, before him who is seated on the throne, worship him who lives forever and ever." What's going on? 3 times in less than 2 verses, you have what amounts to circumlocutions for the Tetragrammaton. Would you have noticed this?
Well, I wouldn't have noticed because I didn't know even what that word meant. I wouldn't have been familiar with the idea. It would just seem like kind of an embroidered way of phrasing things. Like in my mind, that's the way it was. I didn't know anything about circumlocutions. I didn't know that it was the custom of the people to do that, to not say the name, the divine name, and substitute something that would make you know who they're talking about.
But you do notice that they're various, these. They're not always the same.
Yeah.
And that comports with the pattern that you see, let's say, in the book of Daniel, where Daniel uses at least 22 circumlocutions, some of them very fancy.
Yeah.
But some of them repeated several times, like Most High God, etc., God of Heaven. Some of them, though, only once. And some of these are only once in the whole book of Revelation. So all of them, though, the pattern is a deliberate effort to avoid the Tetragrammaton. You realize they're doing the Jewish thing here.
Yeah.
Well, that's not our main point today. Our main point is what they do with the 24 elders.
Yeah.
Now they spend, get this, from page 82 in the book, Finished Mystery, to page 95. So 13 and a half pages are spent
on this verse.
And what do they do with it? Well, they make the 24 elders into 24 prominent figures from the Old Testament, right up to John the Baptist.
They say the personifications of the 24 prophets, and then they tie it to prophets of the Old Testament. But they don't give you all the prophets. They pick and choose.
They arbitrarily select 24
and say this is who the elders are. But isn't that rather arbitrary?
What's it got to do with elders before his throne in heaven, though? Because even they believe that these figures are coming back to live on the earth. So you realize that from the very beginning of this organization, they have been arbitrarily cherry-picking Scripture to make the point they want to make, and they're determined to make Scripture conform to what they want to say. Now, that doesn't mean everything in these pages will be wasted. No, I'm pretty sure they're going to select some good stuff from these 24 lives.
It's just that if you were reading a commentary, this isn't what they would do. They would actually talk about what the text is about. But with them, they talk about what they want to talk about. And so now we're going to get information about different biblical characters. Some of the information is probably fine, but...
Well, let's take a sample.
Yeah.
Let's just do Enoch and Jacob, the first 2 characters from the Old Testament they want to talk about. There's an interesting point here when they get to Enoch. What did they do right away? They don't go to the Genesis text to get information about Enoch. Where do they go?
They go to Jude. They say Enoch was the first of the holy prophets, and according to the apostle Jude, he prophesied of the coming reign of Christ and his glorious bride, to judge the world, saying, "The Lord cometh with a myriad of his saints to execute judgment." Jude 14:15.
Why do they do this? Well, Jude's in there, and I certainly believe that Jude should be in our Bible. But are you even aware, and I wasn't, that Jude was resisted by many of the early persons talking about the New Testament canon, because he's quoting here, it seems, from a pseudo-pagraphical book. It's not even a book that's in the Apocrypha. He's, like many of the early church fathers, he's quoting from Enoch. Well, Enoch's not in our Bible, is it? And referring to things that happened only in those texts. So that doesn't mean we disqualify Jude, but you can understand why some people in the early church would have said, well, Enoch's not approved scripture, so why would I approve of Jude approving of Enoch? So you understand it. Now I'm saying, I can take it at face value and say, well, okay, so Jude seems to be doing something that I have questions about now, but since we've embraced Jude, we have to embrace what Jude says. So what does Jude say about Enoch the prophet? Now, Genesis doesn't say anything about his prophecies. You have to go here to get the prophecy, right? And that they want to make him into a prophet. So the Lord cometh with a myriad of his saints to execute judgment. Now, fine, I can believe that, but Jehovah's Witnesses today don't preach that.
It fits with prophecy. Other prophecies, not just this prophecy.
That's right. That fits with the rest of the Bible. Yahweh is coming personally with a myriad of his saints, whether those saints be angels or Old Testament prophets or New Testament saints. He's coming with a myriad. That is the overall message of the rest of the Bible. But do you preach that if you're a Jehovah's Witness, that God is literally coming to the earth to rule on earth with them?
No.
Obviously you don't. And then they take up Jacob. We should read this in its entirety. They just have a paragraph on Jacob.
Jacob was one of the holy prophets, and in Genesis 49:10 he says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be." The scepter means the right to rule, the title to power, and Shiloh means peacemaker. So this prophecy is merely another way of saying that Judah would be the ancestor of the great lawgiver, the great Prince of Peace, into whose hand God in due time will give the heathen for an inheritance, that they shall all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent.
I don't have much problem with what they say about Jacob, other than the fact that they say that this one verse they quote, Genesis 49 verse 10, is merely another way of saying. No, if you know the history of the Old Testament, you realize that the point of this prophecy is not just that a Messiah will come through the line of Judah one day. It has to do with a land. It has to do with the family, David's family. It has to do with a whole line of kings descended from Judah, descended from David. And it also has to do with the city Jerusalem. And if that's not part of your vision of who Messiah is, then you've got the wrong Messiah.
Or even just what that prophecy can entail more than one thing. So I would say this is a problem not just for Jehovah's Witnesses. There's many who will spend a lot of time, showing you the prophecies to do with the coming of the Messiah. That's wonderful. It's wonderful material. But those prophecies are attached to more than just the coming of the Messiah. It also talks about land and people and
a royal family.
So are those parts also fulfilled the way the Messiah was fulfilled and is to be fulfilled?
So we take the part about him being Messiah literally from the line of David, literally from the line of Judah. Take that all literally.
But
and
then
he came to Jerusalem.
We don't make anything of the other parts of the prophecies.
Right. And
that's a problem.
That's not just a problem for Jehovah's Witnesses in their view of the second coming and what kingdom means. It's a problem for the greater portion of historic Christianity.
Yeah. Now they reference at the end of this Psalm 2:8 and Zephaniah 3:9.
To make their point that there will be a future kingdom and Jesus is the Messiah. But why do you cite only one verse, and that is Psalm 2, verse 8? Read the previous 7 verses to get the big picture, and you'll see what we mean about what's packed into this prophecy about the line of Judah. The whole prophecy says, Psalm 2, verse 1, Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. In the original, it's Yahweh, against Yahweh and his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart, cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. Yahweh, the Lord, said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Now this is the verse they quote or reference. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession. Notice the part they want to reference is about the nations. It's not about Zion. It's not about the family of David. These are promises made to the line of David, who was of the tribe of Judah. All of this is going to be fulfilled according to Jewish expectation, quite literally. And that's what the early church more or less believed until it was thoroughly gentilized by the 3rd century.
Yeah, so the person of the Messiah is important, but the whole setting is also important, the place and the designations of what's going to happen to that place.
Yeah, so we would ask the big question of all people who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses watching this, and all the rest of you who might be all over the place with your convictions at this point. Does God intend prophecy to be understood literally? Does he understand that we will understand that there's a certain consistency about the fulfillment of prophecy? Now we've made videos
all
about
his words matter. That what he says about the Messiah matters, but also what he says about everything else matters.
Yeah.
So you can't just keep one part of it and then leave off the rest as not being clearly said by God and meant.
Yeah. And by the way, there's far more in the Old Testament about the second coming, as we call it now, than there is about the first coming. So you're discarding several hundred pages of prophecy if you adopt any other interpretive system.
Yeah.
What's the link?
We're going to link to a video we did when we were going through J.C. Ryle's commentary on Matthew, and we were reading through Matthew. So Matthew, it's the 4th one that we did, called Prophecies About Messiah Fulfilled, but How? Symbolically or literally? And we'll put the Matthew playlist on too.
The Matthew playlist is mostly J.C. Ryle, plus our commentary.
And our comments, yeah.
And that's way over 100 videos.
Yeah.
See you soon.